This is Philip Van Cleve, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Congressman Gerry Connelly, who is frankly an embarrassment to the Commonwealth. He should never, ever have been elected to Congress. And apparently he has some anger management issues. It's rather interesting to watch the exchange that I've got recorded here. This was on July 22nd, a congressional hearing with the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle. And the rest of the congressmen were trying to get to the bottom of how President Trump was ever in a position where somebody could have gotten that shot off at him. Those congressmen were worried about that, but oh no, not Gerry Connolly. No, no, no. For him, it was all about guns. That we got to do something about guns, and it's hilarious how this turned out. Watching him get red faced when he wasn't getting what he wanted from Miss Cheatle. He was leading her on, trying to get her to come out and say, "Yeah, boy, if we could just ban AR-15s and eliminate a lot of this private gun ownership, it would be so much safer for our protectees." That's what he wanted her to say. He was trying to lead her down the garden path to say that so that he could stand up and say, "Yeah, I see these AR-15s, got to get rid of." But he's just talking about a gun nut. That's all he thinks about. Everything that pops up, it's somehow got to be tied to guns. And so here we go. He's going to go after the guns. Forget how everything else. Don't bother with any of the other things that could have gone wrong. Let's just focus on guns because that's what he does.
You can understand, however, the anxiety we and the American public have about how could this happen and how can we ensure it can't recur. Now, there are some things my friends on one particular side of the aisle don't really want to talk about, like AR-15s and access to them by a 20-year-old or anybody for that matter. Presumably, Director Cheatle, the ubiquity of weapons, guns in America, especially assault weapons or semi-automatic weapons, has helped your job and the mission of your agencies, right? It's made it less complicated. Isn't that true?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Real simple. More guns, especially dangerous ones, have made your job protecting people easier. Is that not right?
Here we see Gerry Connolly trying to be too smart by half. He's trying to be clever in his wording. He's trying to say, oh, guns make security so much harder, especially people having AR-15s. So he asked the question in a convoluted, twisted way, a backward way. And then he's surprised when she doesn't know what the hell he's saying. Gotta love it.
I think from every
Director Cheatle, this is simple English. More guns do they make your job more complicated or less complicated in protecting these 36 clients and visiting heads of state and heads of government that come to Washington?
I think the Secret Service needs to take into account.
I didn't ask that.
The
I'm sorry. I asked a simple question, which deserves a simple answer. The ubiquity of guns, dangerous weapons in America, like AR-15s, has that made your job, that is to say, the mission of the Secret Service, easier or more difficult?
I think the threat environment for protecting our Secret Service protectees is always difficult, and that's dynamic, and it's always evolving.
Well, there's certainly no doubt that Gerry Connolly is a simple man. But if this was a court case, he would be considering to be badgering the witness. He is absolutely trying everything, and he's not done yet, trying to get Miss Cheatle to say what he wants her to say, not what the truth is. The point here is that the Secret Service has to always worry about all kinds of attacks. AR-15 is one thing that could have been used, but any kind of a hunting rifle would have worked. Something that's even not on the government ban list, and it would probably even be more deadly than the AR-15. Some of the hunting rifles out there are way more powerful than an AR-15. So she's trying to stick to that point, and he's trying to single out one gun out of thousands that could be used.
We stipulate it's always difficult. I get it. This is the simple one. Does the ubiquity of guns make your job easier or more difficult today?
I understand the Second Amendment rights of individuals.
I didn't ask that question. I'm not questioning the Second Amendment. I'm asking a simple analysis, Director Cheatle. And I can tell you, you're not making my job easier in terms of assessing your qualification for continuing on as director.
Well, Jerry's starting to lose it. He's just he is trying so hard to make her say something that isn't true that he can use for his gun propaganda. And she's not giving in. I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised. You know, again, I think that Director Cheatle should retire because or resign. This has happened on her watch. At the end of the day, it does stop with her. As hard as that may be for her to accept, it does. But I have to admit, this exchange here, if this is all I saw of her, I would think she was absolutely great for standing up to the badgering, and you can see the implied threat there of, oh, this makes it so much harder for me to decide if you should stay on. You can just see him trying to twist her arm, but she knows more about jujitsu, I guess, than he does.
Please answer the question. You're the head of the Secret Service. You're speaking on behalf of 8,000 members who put their lives on the line. We just had a failure by your own admission. Do guns make your job easier or harder?
I think the job of the Secret Service is difficult on every day, and we need to make sure that we are mitigating all threats, whether that be
That isn't my question. That is not my question. And now I think you're evading the answer, which is not a hard one.
I am sorry that you feel that way, sir.
Oh, temper, Jerry. I do have to admit, I enjoy watching the steam come out of his ears. He's not used to somebody standing up to him like this. And the thing about it is, Cheadle is so nonplussed. I mean, she's sitting there being pounded on, and she's sitting there patiently and confidently and quietly answering his questions. And she's again sticking with the whole point that a particular rifle doesn't make a big difference. I mean, the point is, an assassin is going to bring a rifle into the country if he has to do that. I mean, you have to count on the fact that there are going to be armed people. However they get armed doesn't matter. They will that want to harm a president. So that's all she's saying, and he just can't accept it. It's not what he was wanted to hear from her.
How else could I feel, Director Cheatle, when you're clearly avoiding a direct answer to a very simple declarative question? And we almost lost a presidential candidate the other day. A 20-year-old had access to his father's AR-15 and got on top of a roof within 500 yards or feet of the podium. And I'm asking you, did the availability of that AR-15, which is replicated all across America, make your job harder or easier? And you're not willing to answer that question? And you think and you wonder why we might have a lack of confidence in your continued ability to direct this agency?
Well, Jerry, I will say this. Thank you for continuing to point out over and over again that the AR-15 is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's in common use, which of course protects it under the Second Amendment. And therefore, even if you passed a law federally to ban those guns, it would just be overturned. You can't ban the most popular guns in America, and that makes perfect sense. It's in use all over the place. The police use it, everybody else. So I guess you're just grandstanding, but you've got me feeling sorry for Miss Cheatle. I mean, you're yelling at her, you're threatening her. Again, you're kind of an embarrassment, sir.
I understand your question, and that's the environment.
Well, if you understand my question, why not answer it?
Because it's the environment that the Secret Service works in every day.
That doesn't tell me anything. That's the environment we work in. I had an attack on my office a year ago. I know a little bit about violence too. He came to kill me. When he couldn't, he beat one of my staffers 8 times with a baseball bat on the head. We live with the threat of violence. But a simple answer from the director of the Secret Service would be helpful. And I'm sorry you've chosen to evade it. I yield back. Chair Director.
Well, Jerry, if you were going to be consistent here, you should have been calling to do something about baseball bats. I mean, after all, should the average citizen have one of those since it can be used in violence? You claim one was going to be used to kill you. But I've never heard you make that claim. And now you're somehow a victim of violence because your employee got beat up with a baseball bat. That's a serious thing. But I think he knows a lot more about violence than you do, having been actually exposed to it and seen that somebody that's determined to hurt you can do so if you can't protect yourself. And I'm kind of guessing your employee didn't have the ability to protect himself, which is unfortunate. Well, that kind of ended that exchange. A short clip here from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who also said that AR-15s are in common use, and we thank her for that acknowledgement.
Used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
In the end, what Gerald Connelly was trying to do was to send a signal to Miss Cheatle that basically they could have a win-win. If Miss Cheatle would go along and say, yeah, I just, there's no way I can do my job and protect people securely with all those ubiquitous AR-15s everywhere, with 20-year-olds running around the streets with AR-15s. How can I possibly protect anybody in that crazy environment? We need to do something about this so we can get our job done. And for Jerry, that would have been talking points for him. That he would have said, look, the Secret Service is saying we've got to do this or we can't protect important people. We just can't do it. And he was signaling to Miss Cheatle, hey, if you do this, you've got an excuse. Geez, you did your job. It wasn't your fault. It's just there's AR-15s falling out of the sky and laying in the road that people pick up and use. And you just can't possibly protect people if in that situation. But to Miss Cheatle's credit, and I mean seriously to her credit, she didn't go down that path. That was an easy path to go down. Very easy. He was handing it to her. But she said no. She did not go down that path. She stood up to him and didn't go down the path. And so, grudgingly, I have to say that impressed me that he did that. And it made me feel good watching Gerald Connelly melt down because he didn't get his way. Too bad, Jerry.